Welcome to the Off Central podcast. We're so glad that you joined us today for a very, very special episode. Today, in Scripture, in James 1, it says that true and pure religion that is pleasing to the Lord is taking care of the widow and the orphan, those who have been disaffected, those who are on the fringes of society, who are forgotten about, trodden on, and caring for them. And that's a responsibility that we have as individuals, but also a responsibility that we have corporately together as a body of people. And we're so fortunate today to have here with us Lydia Morgan. And Lydia Morgan is the COO of Jerusalem Institute of Justice, not for justice, of justice, or JIJ for short. And they are their mission is to protect human rights and to save lives. And they accomplish this predominantly at the legislative level, but they do this through upholding human rights laws in the Middle East, providing humanitarian aid to Holocaust survivors and soldiers, particularly suffering with PTSD, fighting to eradicate sex trafficking and prostitution in Israel, offering free legal aid, protecting civil rights and freedoms of religious minorities, and many, many other things that I'm sure we'll get to hear a lot about today. And so we're so glad that you could be with us as our special guest here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really excited to get into the nuts and bolts of what you do and how you became a part of JIJ. But also here with us today, not just one special guest, but two special guests. We have our very own Kirk Sr., our founding pastor here at Central, the bishop, the reverend, the doctor. That is true. I've seen the PhD on the wall here with us today, and so glad that you could join us as well, Pastor Terry.
Well, thank you for having me, Jonathan. I've been watching you. I understand you're the British guy.
The British guy, yeah. The Brit from Baltimore.
The Brit from Baltimore.
That's usually the introduction I get. But I know we're going to hear, and we have lots of questions for you today, but I thought maybe in this podcast we could actually start with you,
okay,
Pastor Terry, and maybe talk about our origin story with JIJ and how we got involved with them and our participation with them. So how did you first hear about this incredible organization?
Well, it started back in about 2010. It actually, when I was thinking of this, I was thinking about the book "The Blessed Life" by Robert Morris. And Robert Morris is the guy who put Israel first. Actually, the first check they write every month from their organization goes to Israel. And the thought hit me, we've never done anything in Israel. We've been all over the world in various organizations, ministering here and there throughout the globe, but never Israel. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, I want you to put Israel first above all the nations. And I said, what does that look like? And so I called a friend of mine. I asked him how many times he'd been to Israel and how do I invest in Israel? I know that we want to do something there. So a friend of mine, Dave Donaldson, said, hey, I'll go with you to Israel. And my first time in Israel, I met in Jerusalem, Lydia's brother, Kalev Myers. And Kalev was the founder of JIJ, and he's the first one I met from Israel. And immediately we struck up a real friendship relationship that we have to this day with the family. This is a wonderful family. They love Israel. They love God. They love to apply their gifts and ministry to the disenfranchised individuals there throughout Israel. So that was my first time there. And it was then that I met Lydia, who was working with her brother in JIJ. And so that's how we began. Our goal was, and still is, we take the first fruit of the income of Central and make an application strictly to Israel. And so what that means is that we fund organizations there in Israel. And JIJ was the very first one that we began with.
Oh, wow.
And we still continue with to this day.
Wow.
And so, we've seen tremendous success there as a result of that. And it's good to know that through Hope Legacy, which is a part of that these funds go into and minister to And we're doing what the Lord spoke. We're blessing Abraham's seed, and those who bless Abraham will be blessed.
Right.
And the moment that we'd made that decision to do that, we saw, and at that time I was the lead pastor here, we saw an increase in attendance, and we saw an increase in finances. And so we feel personally that our continuation to work with organizations like this in Israel and making application to putting Israel first above the nations, we're seeing the results of that, I think, in our congregation as well. And Jonathan, actually, whether you believe it or not, you're probably one of the reasons not one of the reasons, but you're one of the benefits that has come as a result of us doing that.
Well, I'm glad I'm considered a benefit.
Yes.
No, but it's so true. So many churches and religious organizations get quite financially hermetically sealed in terms of taking care of themselves or taking care of their immediate surroundings. But that revelation from the Holy Spirit to say, hold on, if you put Israel first, that there's a blessing that comes with that. There's an exponential blessing that comes with that. And, here I am before you today, that exponential blessing.
That's right. And Lydia as well.
And Lydia as well. No, I'm being facetious. But so that's how we initially had that contact. And how many years ago was that, Pastor?
That was back in about 2010.
2010.
So it's been 12, 13 years.
12, 13 years of relationship with this incredible organization. And really looking forward to hearing some stories. And I'm sure you have many stories, Lydia. But before we dive into specifically GIJ, maybe you can talk a bit about your story and what led you to the work that you're doing now, before we jump into the work that you're actually doing.
Sure, absolutely. So in 2007, my husband and 3 children, we moved to Israel and got citizenship. And we went without jobs. We went by faith and just trusting that God would lead us. And he did. So
what prompted that initial move? Just a dream or a word, or no, we just felt like Israel was the place?
My kids grew up knowing that someday they would live in Israel and serve in the Israeli army. And it was time. It was time to go.
So you make that's a big step of faith.
It is.
Uproot, sell house, visas,
Yep. Everything
that has to be done. I know, I've done that. Here in America, it takes a while. That's a massive uprooting, quitting jobs, huge step of faith. You land in Israel, get citizenship, and then, so what's your story in terms of transitioning and finding all about JIJ and getting involved with this organization?
So I have a background in marketing, conflict resolution, and management. And as Terry mentioned, JIJ was founded by my brother Kalev, and he needed some help, knew my skills, and I started just part-time. And then within 3 months, I think I was full-time. And then that was in 2008, and then was managing everything.
Sure. She does a great job.
Slowly but surely, just as the organization grew and my responsibilities grew and the passion for what we do, it's key. It's key. And I'm honored, privileged to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, the organization really has grown. I was on the website today looking at some of the global impact stats that you have on there. It's pretty phenomenal, really. I mean, what's happening, just reading straight from the website here, 1,300 legal cases handled to date, 14,000 hope for rehabilitation historic wins, which is unbelievable. 95 victims of Palestinian Authority testimony shared in international courts, 25 Supreme Court victories protecting the civil rights and religious freedoms of minorities under Israeli law. I mean, that's like
incredible.
That's a drop the mic moment, isn't it?
It is, really it is.
For such a small organization, the impact that we have it's a good bang for your buck.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, you punch way above your weight, obviously, and there's been a lot of favor.
Yes, absolutely.
And blessing. But maybe talk about that. So you've been part of GIJ from quite early stages of its inception, with your brother obviously founding it, and it's grown and grown over the years. And so maybe talk about that exponential growth. Like, what have been some of the highlight victories for you guys and the wins?
So probably about the time that we met Pastor Terry, it's been 12 years in the making. We really saw the need to change the laws in Israel regarding prostitution and sex trafficking. And, you know, justice isn't just for us. It's not for our bubble, but we're called to be salt and light and impact society. And so from the time of Tamar and Rahab, you know, back Old Testament, prostitution was legal in Israel, in the Holy Land.
If I could just interject there. When I heard that, the prostitution was legal, I was shocked. Wow, I didn't know that. And but go ahead and tell us the victory that JIJ got as a result of that.
Yeah, so it wasn't on Israeli society's radar at all as something that shouldn't be. And so we started with social campaigns. It wasn't just us as well. There were other Israeli organizations, a coalition, and we started social campaigns and just to change the way it was perceived within Israeli society. And that took a long time, you know, and for government entities and officials to want to do something, there has to be a part of the constituency that says, hey, you know, this is wrong. They're not just going to do it on their own. So, yeah, we would find a member of Knesset to adopt our bill, which, by the way, criminalizes the purchase. What we were promoting is called the Nordic model.
Okay.
And because it's in several Sweden, Norway. There were, before Israel, there were, I think, 7 countries that had adopted this. Right. And it is the criminalization of the client, not of the prostitute. The prostitute is a victim. Wow. We don't want to victimize the victims. And so it's a little bit unusual. And we would find a member of Knesset to partner with us on this and push it through. And it has to pass 3 readings. And each time it would get through the second reading, the government would dissolve.
So what does that mean?
That means you have to start all over again.
So you start right from the beginning. But what brings it to that state of dissolving? Is it just a politician throwing something out, or is it a judge saying
No, the entire government.
Entire government.
Wow.
So a vote of no confidence, and then we're voting for a new prime minister.
So
and
for
so
you,
forth.
that meant starting right from scratch again, lobbying all over again, petitioning all again.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And in the meantime, we continued our work, societal as well, drafting a curriculum for high school students for pre-Army. I don't know if you're aware that military service is mandatory in Israel for men and women. And so we were teaching pre-Army classes regarding the dangers of prostitution and sex trafficking. And then in 2018, we found another member of Knesset, and they totally embraced it wholeheartedly. It was a cross-party endorsement, and it passed 2 votes again. 11th hour, the government is about to dissolve again. This is the end of 2018. And we're like, oh, Lord, please, please, please. On December 31st, 2018, it was one of the last things they voted on, and it passed. And thank God, now the purchase of sex in Israel is illegal.
In the whole of Israel.
Yes.
Well, praise the Lord.
Isn't that unbelievable? On the, like you say, on the 11th hour and the 59th minute.
Yes.
Celebrations that day.
I just think I got another offering.
Yeah. But that's exactly the kind of work that I think so often Christians think of it their work fundamentally, or religious people think of their work as fundamentally as individual, but that we can function on this much more broader corporate level and legislative level, and that we're called to do that use our giftings in in the legal world and our legal acumen in order to bring about and affect real drastic change, not just to one life, but to how many lives have been helped because of that. It's pretty phenomenal work. What an incredible win for you guys.
Thank you.
And I guess one of the bigger battles for you, like you say, was just bringing about awareness into the public conscience about this is actually an issue, because it gets so ignored, or it just goes under the radar, I suppose. And that I suppose is still an ongoing issue, why you have to keep this in. So do you have to keep that awareness heightened, otherwise I'm assuming bills will get passed and things slip again, and they almost slip backwards. Does that make sense? You don't want to slip back into, it's legal again all of a sudden, because people aren't talking about or aren't aware of the issues that come with it.
Well, and just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's enforced properly either. Right. So it took the government 18 months to put in infrastructure for rehabilitation, to secure funding. So we continue to work with the government. I don't know if you knew that, but we continue in the coalition. Again, it's not just us. It's never just us, It's important that we work with partners and not reinvent the wheel every time, come alongside other people that are doing great work. So yes, we actually had to create content and training for the police, because imagine the perspective of a policeman. You stumble across a prostitute and a buyer, and your MO is to arrest the prostitute. It's a complete different mindset and a change of actions and activity, and so that has been difficult. That has been challenging. So now we want to show compassion to the prostitute. And so we've been part of that as well, is in securing the funding, securing the rehabilitation. There are new halfway homes throughout the country in places where they weren't before. And it's not just women, it is children. There is a rather large trans population that this affects as well. So providing funding for job training and getting the medical and social help that they need. So it's ongoing. It's ongoing,
and it takes a long time to shift people's mindsets.
Yes.
Because in prostitution, you couldn't imagine that anybody grows up thinking, I'll make a career of this. People are forced into it out of necessity, financial necessity, I'm assuming. And usually it's the women who end up bearing the brunt of it. They can't financially support themselves, or they end up in very hostile situations. That's certainly been our experience here in Baltimore when we're working with disaffected women and people on the streets, that they're being, they have their pimp, and their pimp he's the boss, he's in charge, he rules them. They can't go anywhere, they can't do anything, they can't talk to anybody without him watching or those people watching. And when you really get into their lives, you realize that they have a story, and that story is one of victimhood. And the cycle just perpetuates itself. And then we have legal systems that criminalizes their victimhood, and it just makes it even worse. And we're putting the wrong people in prison.
Exactly.
A lot of times the women are victims by being promised jobs.
Yes.
Coming into Israel, and so they come in from other countries. They're
as
promised
refugees, or
we'll hire you as a secretary. They get there. That was just the front. That was bait and switch. And
come work as a nanny. Come work, as a caretaker, and they land, and their passport is ripped from them. And no, this is not.
And a lot of the times they get them hooked on substances,
exactly.
Different kinds of drugs, and then, of course, that just creates that tie that they can't break from. They have a financial need, and then they also have this addictive need, and there's a cycle that they can't break away from. And what's terrifying is, as a society, when we have laws that enable this, and doesn't just enable this, but criminalizes the wrong people.
Exactly.
And this is exactly why you exist and
Yes.
your organizations exist. But in terms of our partnership here at Central, we've given support and financial support. And so when somebody from our congregation today says, I'm loving what you're doing, I love these battles that you're winning, and the minds and the hearts of people, not just legislative laws, but they want to invest more. If somebody gives $5,000 to your organization, that'd be great if somebody wanted to do that. There's no limit on that. Can you just explain, where does that money exactly go to? How does that get divvied out? And what kind of things are you involved in right now that money can really support and make some changes?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. So we have on staff, we are now a team of 10. And when we started, it was just myself, and then I hired an assistant, and we have now grown to a team of 10, and that mostly lawyers who provide pro bono legal aid for Christian minorities in Israel. We have a couple different departments, and so that $5,000 will go directly to impact, I would say, probably 3 families.
Right.
And we really, because we have in-house attorneys on staff, we're paying their salary. We're not paying, what it would be, $25,000 per case. We don't have billable hours. It's all about service. It's all about meeting the needs of the Christian community in Israel. Israel is a Jewish state, as you know, and the homeland for the Jewish people, and it needs to be that.
Yes.
We truly believe that. Under Israeli law, there is, in the Declaration of Independence, there is freedom of religion. And that is not always easy. To be a religious minority in Israel, as you can imagine, there are challenges. So we protect their rights. We protect freedom of religion. And by doing so, we actually strengthen Israel's democracy. And we're honored to do so. And so each of those, I don't know how in depth you want to get, but
as in depth as you want to go.
Regarding the Ministry of Interior, and that is the entity, such as you are probably America's Ministry of Interior. You're trying to get citizenship here.
Yes.
So in Israel, they're the ones that decide who gets citizenship, who gets a visa, who gets status. And if you are of Christian faith, or they don't necessarily like that. So it's we face challenges there. But again, because Israel is a democracy, because there is rule of law, we do have recourse. We have legal recourse. And so that impacts families, that impacts communities and congregations. And yeah.
That's beautiful. And maybe you talked right at the end there about communities and families. And I know you guys work at a higher level, but in terms of grassroots and working with families and people, how intimate does JIJ become in terms of personally working with people and getting to know these families and spending time with them?
Oh, gosh. Very intimate, very close, very...
Could you share a story or?
Sure, they become part of our family. So I'll share a story of a family. He's a pastor in the South, and of Russian background, and he married, and they actually had 3 children, but for 5 years, his wife, because he's a believer, his wife was not allowed in the country. And they just chose to challenge that and deny her rights. That's illegal. And with 3 children. Like, can you imagine? So he's going back and forth every few months trying to care for his family. And they heard about JIJ through word of mouth, and our attorney, really, she was outraged. She was incensed, This is a family that's being kept apart. The children aren't seeing their father, and it became very personal. family is everything in Israel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a culture that's just so built around
Yes.
the family and food and communion and time together.
Yes. So we took this case on, and again, everything we do, all the services we provide are pro bono. So when you give your $5,000,
Or 10.
Or 10 or 20 or
20. Giving Tuesday's coming up.
I love it. Sliding it in there. That's great.
Yeah. That goes specifically to help families. These are real families. These are people with feelings, with needs. And our attorney took this on and won because of the law, you know? And so this family is reunited, and that's just one example of many. And as you get to know people, so particularly congregations, as they come to us with their needs, then you find out, oh, well, this congregant has a need, and this one does, and this one does. And
Right.
we become very close.
Yes, you end up working and having those interpersonal relationships with congregations and people, and that just spreads. It's beautiful.
And it's interesting because Israel's about the size of New Jersey.
Yeah.
And so the entire nation. And it's amazing as to how many people know everybody
Yeah.
in that nation. Mm-hmm. And the reputation that these folks have are tremendous. Lydia, just a question, more on a personal basis.
Sure.
Just so our audience would know a little bit about what's it like living in Israel. When you moved there, I'm sure there were adjustments and so forth. You didn't know the language when you moved. And yet, what's it like? Because I'm taking a group of people next year there, and perhaps they'll be listening to this, and they'd like to know they've never been before. So tell us a little bit about what it's like.
Wow. It is challenging and blessed at the same time. You need to know that you're supposed to be there. It's not a place to go on a whim. You know, permanently, I should say.
Permanently,
Right.
correct.
Do come and visit. It's amazing. It's safe. It's beautiful. The richness of the history and the culture and just the landscape is inspiring. And as a family, it's been really good. Again, challenging. The language is difficult, and most Israelis do speak some English, so that's a plus. It's also challenging in that aspect because, full transparency, I have taken Ulpan 5 times now. That is Hebrew lessons,
Right.
and continue to learn. I'm about 75 to 80%. Again, it depends on context, and I'm
It's hard learning a
fluent by
language.
no means. My children are fluent now. And again, we didn't know anything when we went. We just knew that we were to go and support, and that everything would fall into place. And it did.
And it has.
It has. It has been so good. You know, when people say, oh, God bless you, God bless you. And my response is, he has. He has.
You know, I've been Jerusalem is my favorite city in the whole world.
Yeah, I know.
And I keep reminding everybody of that. But there's nothing like Jerusalem at the beginning of a Sabbath when the peace that comes over that city. You can't, it's almost like you're stepping into history and tradition of all the Jewish people, all the way back to Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, right on up the line, the prophets. And it's just, you have this sense of, I'm a part of that. And it pulls you right into it. It's the Jewish people know how to celebrate. When they have those feasts, I mean, they celebrate. And the families, it's just, it's remarkable. It's a culture that I wish everybody in America could experience and see the value that they place on human life. And I once asked an individual who was a security guard at the Gaza border. And I said, what's the difference between the Palestinian and the Jewish people? They both have their history in Abraham. And he said, one celebrates death, one celebrates life. Israel celebrates life, while the others have celebrated death. And when I look at that, I feel like as though it's the government of those people that does that, and they're just the victims as well of those particular leaders. Didn't mean to get political here with this, but Israel is a tremendous place. I would love to go there for a season, but I would.
We need interns, Terry.
Well, I would love to come right back here. Perhaps we can talk about that at the end of our 40th anniversary this year.
Oh, wow.
This year coming.
You're going to go and be an intern, are you? But that is something on your website. It might be worth, now that you've mentioned it, that you do have interns. How does that program function? Is that full time, or can people from overseas come? Or obviously it's, or do people need legal skills, or what kind of people do you look for when it comes to your internship program?
We primarily look for master's students and postmasters in law or international law, human rights law, things like that. The other thing we need is social media experts.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that is challenging. That is very challenging for the organization. So we have many that come from Europe, from the U.S., and now we just started a program particularly targeted for Christian millennials and college students to come and learn about not only how to advocate for Israel and why Israel is important today, but also the Jewish roots of the Christian faith. So we're very excited to offer that, and that is just getting up and running, and we're excited. They learn how to give a TED Talk. They learn we help them with their soft skills and really.
Sounds great.
It's holistic learning. It's not just sitting in an office.
Exactly.
Developing character and verbal skills and communication. And I mean, it's an incredible organization. You guys do humanitarian work, legal work, working with a younger generation of interns, developing their minds and equipping them to be able to not just do what you do, but do more and stand on the shoulders of what you've done. That would always be the dream, wouldn't it?
Yes. I see an opening for a pastoral care person on staff to help with your staff and make sure that everybody's ministered to.
He's creating a job for himself there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Full-time living in Israel.
Do you work with mental health?
Yeah. I'll plenty of that. He has to deal with me every week.
I wanted to go back to your question earlier about living in Israel. And one of the things that was most challenging as an American is the lack of personal space. You know, it is a small country. There's now over 9 million people in it, and it's it can be abrasive. I guess that's a good word to use. However, so a personal story, I fell crossing the street one time. Within seconds, before I hit the ground, there were 6 people running to help me. Cars stopping, people getting out. Oh, you get her water and you help her up and you, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need an ambulance? So there's that abrasiveness there, and that it's a young country. And you have this sense of, I call it feels like living on an edge, really. And when I come back here, I'm so sorry. I have to say this. I'm here for like 2.5 weeks, and I got to go home. Israel is home. Jerusalem is home. And that's where my passion is and my life. And it's just, again, it's not easy, particularly as an American. You're not going to have, unless you're extremely, extremely wealthy, you're not going to have the same lifestyle. It's, we have one car. And when we moved there, someone gave us a 1994 Ford Escort that was duct taped together, and when there's a lot of speed bumps. If you had too many people in the car, you had to stop. They had to get out so you could go over the speed bump. No joke. Since then,
That's fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have a lot of good stories, and my kids did serve in the Israeli military, and that was a great experience for a couple of them. Not so easy for another one, but it's all part of the process. It's all part of growing. It's all part of strengthening this young nation that Israel is, and being part of it.
They're amazing. The lady served 2 years?
So it used to be men 3, women 2, and now it has, there's an average now. I think they serve like 20 months each, something like that.
Okay.
They just changed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, still conscripted army. Well, we are sort of nearing or drawing towards sort of the end of our time together.
But there's so much more to say.
There's so much more to say. Well, what I was going to ask that question. What would you like to say to people watching this podcast, some of our listeners? What is something that you wanted to come on here and leave people with, knowing about either your organization or maybe what you have learned through your interactions and through the battles that you've had to face either personally or as an organization? What is something that you want people to know?
I want you to know that you can make a difference. No matter what your background is, no matter your education, your schooling, you need to look outside yourself. You need to look for those that are vulnerable and weak. And it's not just the people that you come across, but sometimes they're there. Sometimes they're obvious. Sometimes you can reach out a helping hand. Sometimes just smiling at somebody, giving them an encouraging, hey. It sounds so trite sometimes, but that leads you then to find out more about them. That leads you deeper. That leads you, really just look outside yourself. I think especially with COVID, we're so concerned about surviving and making it, but we're all in this together, and we're supposed to be a positive light and a salt and an impact, and that's all. Well,
those are beautiful words. COVID has done a number on creating a sense of isolation and people becoming insular and taking care of the self first. But like you say, we're in this together. We have a shared human experience, and we're connected through our bond of being human, through bearing the image of God and His likeness that everybody carries, whether you're American, whether Israeli, British, or even Palestinian, or whatever country you pull from the people who perpetuate and even prostitution, to those who are the victims of prostitution. Everybody carries that image of God, and everybody needs a helping hand in order to break through. And, at the beginning I opened up with James 1, where taking true and pure religion is taking care of the widow and the orphan. And I think it's not just widow and orphan. I think the point is those who are broken, those who are on the margins of society, and we bear that responsibility, like you so eloquently put, individually as well as corporately. We all carry that responsibility. We do. It's a weight. We've been given gifts, and we need to give back. We need to share and pull people up with us, out of the mire. Yes. We all get stuck from time to time. The muck and the mire, yes. The muck and the mire, absolutely. If I could leave us with something today. Absolutely. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Yes. We're in an unprecedented times in history. Since 1948, we're seeing Bible prophecy fulfilled constantly. Israel has everything to do with the last of the last days, and the future of all Christianity in the whole world is centered in Jerusalem. And so I want us to constantly pray for divine protection and for proper leadership
in that country as it moves forward. And I remember what John Hagee said. He said, you can't define Christianity without Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
That's our roots. We've been grafted in, not created separate from. And so we're all in this together. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Lord has put deeply in my heart the passion for Israel. Even before I was ever a believer, when I was a child, I can remember back to elementary school days where I had this love for Israel. And now I'm being in my latter years, being able to be a part of doing something to make a difference. To those of you earlier, we were asking the question, how do I give? You can give to JIJ, or you can give to the church designated for JIJ through our Hope Legacy lanes, and the funds that you give, make sure we get right there to them. Is exactly how we'll do that. And so, Lydia, on behalf of the congregation here and our friendship, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
And please give my love to your brother Kalev when you see him again, and tell him I will be seeing him in the near future, hopefully. And also give Scott my regard, your husband.
Thank you.
Love that guy. And so,
Me
Jonathan,
too.
I'm going to pitch this back to you, and you can wrap it up from here. But I just wanted to say that to the individuals here: pray for the peace of Jerusalem. You will prosper.
But thank you, Pastor, and thank you so much, Lydia, for your organization, for your time, your energies, your service to what it is that you do, for saying yes to the calling that you feel like and the burden that God has placed on your heart. What you do has real change, and I know that there are people watching this who are going to be incredibly moved and inspired by the work that you and your friends and organization is doing. And we're championing you here from Baltimore in Maryland. We are praying for you guys. We support you guys, and just believing that there are so many more incredible victories for you ahead in the future.
Amen.
Amen. Well, that about wraps it up today for the Off Central podcast. I hope that this has in some way enriched your life. I pray that you have a blessed week. We'll see you next week.